Hi everyone! Today we'll take a look at our first multi-material print attempt and at the results, which are actually surprisingly good, even if, yes, it did fail. Yeah, so let's roll the intro and get right into it. Okay, so first of all, you may have noticed there's a print running on the right-hand corner of your screen right now, and it's making quite a lot of noise because, of course, I'm using the cheapest drivers available, so I had to enable noise cancelling on NVIDIA Broadcast. So hopefully you shouldn't hear too many 3D printing sounds. For the people that are new here, what we're working on is a multi-material upgrade based on the MMU2, and essentially use all the user feedback and essentially problems that people had with that upgrade, improve on it, and then make it compatible with basically any printers, because what I'm trying to do is make it run on Marlin and on the main board of the 3D printer, so you wouldn't need an extra board to control it. What that means is that it's also going to be way cheaper than the MMU2, so the upgrade itself in raw components costs around $50 US, I believe, and it will vary slightly depending on where you are. But if you also need a motherboard upgrade, because some motherboards are not compatible with what I'm working on, so you need essentially an extra motor control, and not every board has that. So you may need an extra $50 in order to get everything up and running, but having a multi-material upgrade for around $100 US is really good when you compare that to the solution offered by Prusa, by Palette, so Mosaic, and by everything else. So now we'll go and take a look at our results, and I will explain to you what I had to modify in order to get to those results. Okay, so before we go into too many technical details, let's first look at the results we got. So let's start with the first attempt I made. So this is basically it. It's a bicolor lizard, and essentially this was sliced with Cura, using 5 extruders set up in Cura, and I'm gonna show you in a bit that it doesn't work at all. So essentially it has a lot of flaws in terms of multicolor printing, and Cura isn't really made for multicolor printing. So that's what I was using most of the time, because I don't know, that's what I was used to, and that's the first thing I started using when I got my first 3D printer. So that's what I stuck with up until now. But for this project I had to change. So as you may see, there's a single layer that was printed, and this is because it managed to change to the blue filament correctly. Because remember, this is brand new filament, it has been cut, it's never been in a nozzle. Then it was able to retract the filament. Sorry for bumping the mic. And then it inserted the bronze filament and started printing, and it works perfectly. But once it's tried removing the bronze filament and inserting the blue filament that had been previously removed, it jammed. And that's actually because what we're essentially doing is the logic for loading and unloading is take the filament out slowly and then just remove it. And that creates tips that are not shaped to the extruder, because the melted zone is not really in the extruder. So you have the nozzle, which is pointy, and in the entire heat break there's heat and there's melted filament. So when you remove, it's like removing the filament from a small, like, melted from melted filament. So you just remove the filament and then there's still filament left inside the nozzle. And the tips were really weirdly shaped, and some of them actually expanded and jammed everything. And that's why I had to implement some logic in order to shape the filament tip correctly. And I had 2 options at that point. So either programming it myself, just going inside VS Code and setting different movements at different speeds for each filament change. But I remembered that this is already part of Prusa Slicer, since Prusa Slicer supports the MMU2, and the MMU2 also needed that filament removal specific transition in order to get some clean and good looking tips. So I thought, why not give it a try? And actually, it's compatible with basically any printer, and it works very well. And it's also way better than Cura for multicolor print. So that's what I went with. So essentially, once I changed to Prusa slicers, set everything up, I did quite a few attempts of that little turtle right here. I will probably have it linked down below because it's a really cool model. Yeah, so first off, it did like 2-3 layers, and then it jammed. I changed the settings of slicers. I managed to go through like 4 or 5 layers. I changed the settings again, modified a bit the code inside inside the actual firmware, and we were able to get to that point. So yeah, it was done in incremental changes, and for every semi-successful model that I show you, there's an absolutely failed one that started and just never finished. So the print that is happening on the top right corner of the screen right now should hopefully be the first successful prints, because I feel like I have dialed enough the slicer in order to get everything working properly. And it's a multicolor benchy, so I will show the footage of it right now. Hey, future me here. So spoiler alert, the benchy was indeed successful. So I will definitely have some B-roll footage of it so you can see it more clearly. So yes, it is indeed extremely stringy, but that's because I was trying to avoid the oozing that I had onto the turtle. So on one side of the turtle there are some filament specks and bits of filament that are left coming from the wipe tower. So it's only on one side. And because of that, I enable the settings that is currently causing, at least on that little benchy, some horrible stringing. And yeah, this is our first successful multicolor print, and I'm really happy of how it turned out. This is actually surprising. So I was thinking that this upgrade wouldn't work without any filament sensor at all. So this doesn't have the Finda sensor that the MMU has. This doesn't have the IR sensor that the MMU2S has. So it was surprising to me that it will work that well. And when saying that well, I agree. This looks ugly compared to what some of the people are getting out of the MMU2. But this is my second print attempt. I have not tuned anything, and every print, after every print I make a huge amount of improvements, so I'm pretty sure that I could get some really good looking prints out of this upgrade without any improvements. Also this is not the last model that I want to show you. I want to show you the model that is printing right now, right here. I'm gonna have some B-roll footage of that because of course I can't show it to you, it's still printing. And it's actually a multicolored dog, and it has some problems, but it looks very good. And I'm going to explain to you why it's actually very promising, even if it is kind of failed. You will see what I mean when I show you the B-roll. So as you can see on the dog, the white part is not completely printed. There's a small gap at some point. And then further up, there is a black line in the middle of the head. And this is actually caused by the same issue that is also causing the slight irregularities in terms of the extrusion. So in between layers, you can see some small changes in how, let's say, thick it is and how far out it goes. And those are, let's say, difference in the extrusion flow. And it was all caused by the same thing. So as you may expect, I'm making a lot of modifications and tweaking both physically and on the firmware side of things right now that I'm able to do some test prints. And when I was doing that, I disassembled the motor and the gear assembly, including the shaft and the coupler. And because of that, I think I didn't tighten it back well enough. And that meant that sometimes the gears, the gear, the rod that the gears are on was able to slip slightly onto the coupler, and this meant that it wasn't extruding as much as it should have. And this became a real problem when removing the white filament, because it did that more than it was doing it during the print. So it actually removed the white filament. It cleared the filament from the MMU. So the white filament was outside of the MMU, and as you can expect, this caused the white filament to just not print at all. So in order to fix that, I just placed the white filament back into the printer. I hadn't realized that the printer was not working and that this problem was happening. And I realized it further ahead when the metal rod made a screeching noise as the motor was turning, and the filament wasn't loading in properly. It wasn't even moving. And to fix it, I just unmounted everything, screwed it back in, and this is also what caused that black layer line. And yeah, that black line was caused because I saved the print just in time, and that meant that the filament was still not, it hadn't been wiped. So it went to the wipe tower, did the very weird noise, and I was like, I need to fix it. I paused it, it paused at the really end of the wipe tower. I screwed everything back in, swapped the filament in, and then restarted the print, but there was still a bit of black filament left inside the print, and that did that black layer line. And as you can see, this improves the print quality a lot after that black line. That's the line where I retighten everything, and you can see that the print consistency is back, and it looks very, very good. And this is why this model is even more promising than this little benchy here. So yeah, it looks very good, and I believe that I'm going to reprint the exact same one with the thing fixed, and I believe that we would get some really amazing results. So I will show you the result of that in the next video, and we will get now to the slicer side of things. And just a quick thing that I wanted to show you, and that I was actually quite surprised when starting multicolor 3D printing. I didn't optimize the wipe tower at all, so don't be afraid and like change your mind about multi-material 3D printing. But this is the wipe tower for this model, and if you weigh them both, this is 2 times heavier than this. So we're spending 2 times as much filament in the wipe tower as in the model. And this is because I have not tweaked the tower at all. But I was actually quite surprised when I removed them both and weighed them in my hands. You can actually feel the difference because this is so dense. Yeah, it's just really cool to see this wipe tower with the different colors and the color combinations. Yeah, I think this is a really good thing. And actually, that visual effects of the color combinations creating a different color. So you can see here we have bronze and blue, and it's making a darker shade of blue. I believe this is something I want to look into, because I think that we may have, this may be a way to have some different colors using 2 filaments. So let's say, imagine you want this color actually, and you have bronze and blue loaded. You can actually make this color by having some really thin layers and just combining them. So I feel like that could be a way to increase the number of colors by enabling combinations, but that would be something to look into. That's also one of the reasons I made and I went into this project of building a multi-material upgrade, is because there are so many applications that haven't been explored and worked on yet with this multi-material upgrade. And I believe that if a lot more people have it, it will really enable a lot of advances in 3D printing. So like, just a quick idea that are going through my head is removable supports. This has been here for a while, but I believe that it's like not well known enough compared to what it should be, because it's a really interesting process, and this is something I wanted to try as well. There are starting to be conductive filaments, so having a multi-material capable printer would mean that you could do some crazy things with conductive filament and also combined properties. So you have flexible filaments, you have ABS, PTG. I know that some of those don't bind very well together, but that's also something I want to look into, if we can create some kind of like interface between them or find a way to print them together. But yeah, multi-material 3D printing gives a lot of opportunities in terms of like upgrades and advances in the 3D printing technology, and also a lot of challenges, and this is why I created this upgrade, because I wanted to look into all of that. But now that we went quite further away from the topic I wanted to talk about, we're gonna get into actually Cura before anything else, so that I show you what it looks like initially and why I decided to go with something different and with Prusa slicer. Okay, so I told you that initially I was using Cura, and how did I set everything up? So I essentially created a new printer setting with 5 extruders, and then in order to see the different color, I had to create some custom materials with a specific color so I could differentiate it. Actually, you see, I've only created 2 specific ones, and that's because it was super laggy. Just once you have a model loaded, creating a new so first, that's one of the things, like I loaded everything in, and instead of making a clean model instantly like Prusa slicer does, it just gives me some bits and pieces that I then have to select and give me a second and merge, and then I have to ungroup, and then I have to select each specific part, and I can only select them. I can select them here or here, and then you have to select inside of there the extruder that you want to print it with, and it's just a real mess. So, and actually you cannot select your extruder on here, I believe. You have to select it in here. I'm not sure about everything in Cura, I just did it once, but I want to show you that it doesn't work very well. And actually right now, it just crashed. You see how long it took? When I was clicking and I was saying that I was not sure? You see how long it took to change color and change extruder? That's just how bad it is. And slicing takes forever, and also creating a custom color takes forever as well. So changing colors all the time is not possible. A second relatively big problem that I have with Cura, and that I think 3D Printing Nerd talked about, is the actual wipe tower. So as you can see, Prusa does a really big fat block that is very sturdy and works well. But here, what it does is this little tower. This little tower is supposed to hold up with very big prints, and right now it seems like this seems, I mean, it should work, like it doesn't seem too high for the size of the base, but this is the same size whether your model is this big or whether your model goes all the way to the top for your printer. And imagine if this tower was that long, the nozzle could just bump into it and remove the wipe tower, and then your print would be absolutely done. And go watch 3D Printing Nerd's video about it. It's really interesting, and that's also one of the reasons I realized that Cura was really not going to work with multi-material 3D printing, at least in the way I'm doing it. So I believe, okay, it's reloading the filament right now. So what I'm going to do now is just wait and cut here, and we'll jump to when a new filament gets loaded in. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is the filament being unloaded. So it's doing a back and forth motion while moving the filament up and down, and before that it did the ramming sequence, so essentially it pushed the filament super hard into the nozzle. And once all of that is done, in order to shape the tip, it's taking the filament out. And this is actually what you're seeing going on right here. So as you see in the top right corner, there's the extruder turning and unloading the filament. Once the filament is completely unloaded, it will move the idler to select the correct filament. That's what it's doing right now, as you can see. And then it will reload the new filament that will go through the merger and then directly to the nozzle. So there is no, this is a Bowden style setup. There is no extruder in between. And you can actually see the filament moving through the PTFE tube right now if you look at the left side of things. Yeah, this is basically it. And what it's gonna do next and doing now, it's essentially wiping the filament inside the wipe tower, and that's just to have a clean color transition. I tweaked the color transition in order to get a smaller wipe tower, then essentially double the size of the print. Now I think I'm about half-half, so as much filament inside the wipe tower as in the model, and I'm pretty sure that I could cut down even further onto how much material I waste, because the color transition happens actually really fast. This you just witnessed a filament change from this upgrade, and it's going very well up until now. But there are a couple things that can fail at that point, and I'm going to go over a few of them right now. So, what happened with that little turtle? So, actually, two things. So the first thing is one of the filament tip was badly shaped because of the slicer was not properly set up, and because of that, it just jammed. And what happens is it stays jammed, so it was stuck to the extruder. Because actually inside the extruder it's slightly larger than the PTFE tube, so if there's a big blob, sometimes it gets stuck inside the extruder. And it went for 2 layers until the same filament was reloaded once again, and this time it went back into the extruder and tip was cleanly shaped, and it started printing correctly again. But at that time I had noticed that everything was not working and was like, what is going on? So I just tightened the tensioning screws on top of the idler a bit more, and that caused the idler to skip. And at that point, it was game over. So there was no way I was getting that print to come out cleanly. So I just decided to stop it, and that was yesterday. And today we were doing a benchy, a multicolor benchy. I had another attempt at it previously that failed. And that was also because of a wrong tip, so I went further into the slicer. I changed the ramming sequence, which I'm going to go further into in a sec, and now it seems to be working properly, so let's hope it continues that way. And what we're going to do now is go to Prusa Slicer. Okay, so let's leave Cura behind and go into Prusa Slicer. So Prusa Slicer has a lot of benefits compared to Cura when it comes to multicolor 3D printing. And the first one is the workflow. So when working with multi-material models, you add all the different parts of your model. The slicer will automatically detect that it's a multiple object and multi-part object that you have loaded, and it will ask you whether it is one. You just confirm, and it brings them all together and gives you a nice interface to change different extruders. So the color are chosen sequentially, so I did not choose those colors, but you can easily change them to the right. You have a little drop down menu, you could just click on it and then it changes the color. Let's say those are the current filament that are loaded in, but let's say that I want to change the color filament I had loaded in. This is way simpler than in Cura, because you just go into printer settings, extruder, you select your extruder that you want to change, you select extruder color, and then you select the color so you can visualize the change you want to make. Of course, you can also change temperature and different print settings for each of the different filaments. Now, compared to Cura, this is way better, since when doing that, Cura would actually crash. So this is also runs a lot smoother compared to Cura when working with 5 extruders. As you can see, it's super smooth. I can select things, move them around, I can change color without any bugs at all. And Cura just doesn't like to work with multiple extruders. And it actually kind of makes sense. This slicer is really well adapted for 5 filament printing and multiple filament printing because it's made by Prusa, and Prusa has the MMU2 as one of their product, and they need good support for it, well, since it's one of their product. And Cura is made to work with FDM 3D printers and mainly Ultimakers, so originally, but it works on a lot of other printers as well. But up until now, at least I believe, it was really difficult to get a multicolor upgrade for your printer, and there was very little printers that supported that. And the solutions that existed also have some specific slicers. So I'm thinking of the palette and other stuff like that. So Cura and other slicers don't need to support all those extruders. Because, I mean, a very small percentage of the user base would actually need it. And that's, did I say Prusa? I mean Cura. I'm not sure what I said, but I'm talking about Cura. And this is not the case with Prusa. So Prusa is a lot smoother with multiple extruders, and that's a great thing. Another extremely useful and important thing is that it kind of shapes the tip before doing the unload and reload of the filament. It does that through the ramming and the cooling moves. So the ramming sequence, actually, I'm going to show you what it looks like right now. Okay, so it's here in filament settings in advanced. You have the ramming settings. And actually what this allows you to do is adjust the ramming time. What I'm working on with right now is about 4, and with a more, let's say, rough change. And actually what happens is that it loads in the filament, it pushes it in it strongly, then it removes it, and that shapes the tip properly, because the actual filament doesn't really have that much time to melt, so it keeps its shape better, and it works very well. So that's one of the things, one of the key elements that was that made print successful. So initially when working with Cura, as I said before, 2 layers and it was over. But with Prusa Slicer, up until now, I've been able to do like 300 tool changes with no problems. And the issues I've had were never with the slicer, or at least they were related to settings in the slicers, but the slicer is just doing a perfect job. You just need to set it up correctly, and I will do a video about that, but not right now because I don't feel comfortable enough with the software to do a video about it. And I also need to tweak everything properly on my side before I'm able to tell you what you need to change and look out for. So there will be a video about that coming, as well as a video about how to build the MMU. And yeah, this is pretty much it on the slicer side of things. So I'm really happy with where we're at right now. I kind of matched the December deadline I gave me to have our first multicolor print. I believe that the print running right now will be successful, and this is really nice. I will either add right now a footage of whether it worked or not, or I will post in the comment below whether it worked or not, depending on how fast I edit the video. Yeah, now what we're going to do is go into some software changes. So if you don't really... Did I just say software changes? I probably meant outro. So this is editing me, and just realized that the video is already 28 minutes long. And I'm honestly trying to keep it below 30 minutes because at that point viewership drops a lot, and when doing any kind of coding, viewership also drops really hard. So I don't want to do extra work for no one to look at. So I'm gonna do a separate video about this because I believe that those are still interesting changes, and I just want to show them in a separate video, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So in the next few days you may see a video about those software changes happen. Now if you like this video, well, make sure to subscribe and activate the notifications so that you're notified whenever I do a new video. And this will become more and more important because in a matter of weeks I will have a tutorial about how to set everything up on basically any printer, everything you need to know regarding board compatibility and all that stuff. I will make a complete tutorial on how to set everything up once I have something that I believe is polished enough and reliable enough to be at least as reliable as the MMU2. And I honestly am aiming at having something that is more reliable, and that because it's fully open source and works on Marlin, and I believe that a lot more people are going to have access to it, that there are going to be upgrades both from me and other members of the 3D printing field to that. So this is one of my goals. So yeah, make sure to subscribe and have some kind of way to get notified whenever I post a video, so that you don't miss this. Also, if you want to build one for yourself, or just want to look at the code or the 3D files, or anything that I just showed you in any of my videos, everything is on the GitHub, so I will have it linked down below. And also, if you are attempting to build it right now, I honestly don't recommend it. But before starting to build it, honestly, go in the Discord channel that I've linked down below, and ask me either directly through private messages or in one of the text channels for a kind of help, so I can guide you on what you need to get and how to set everything up. Because it's still, I don't have any documentation on how to build it, and I'm working on that so that it gets really easy to build. And yeah, so if anyone wants to submit any ideas, features that they want to see added to this, or want to contribute, just go in the Discord. There are already a few people in there helping me, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you liked this video, and I will see you guys next time.